Randi.
Is that just going to get more emphatic each episode? I'm Nathaniel, by the way.
I don't know if it's going to get more emphatic or if I just don't feel comfortable with our listeners yet, and I can't say nerds in a nice way.
Oh, so you just need to dominate them right away. This is our first episode, too.
And we have not even said what it is, what the podcast is.
The podcast is the Pretendium Compendium. And this is our first episode. Technically, our 0th episode is also available today. And Randi, should they listen to episode 0 before they listen to episode 1?
If you want to know more about us
Yeah.
and our motivations, then listen to episode 0. If you don't really care and you just want to get a taste for the content we're going to have, you can skip it.
Yeah, it's much like role-playing itself. It's homebrewed. You do what you want and you do what works for you.
It's the equivalent of, like, if a colleague within a gaming group... Colleagues, those people that you role-play with. If one of your party members shares a character background, you can choose to read it, or you can not.
Crumple, toss, 2 points.
Yeah. So, in this podcast, we do a number of things, but the primary thing, the thing that we're going to do in odd number episodes, such as this one, is we're going to talk about beasties. And specifically, we're going to talk about the monsters from the first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And we might branch out to other monsters as well, but we're starting with these ones for a variety of reasons that don't necessarily include nostalgia.
Yeah.
I think that's the automatic association with using older materials, because both Nathaniel and I were born in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily nostalgia for us. It's more of an appreciation for a certain time in role-playing history, and also those books are kind of easy to roast.
Yeah, very much so. And appreciation is the right word. It's a different era. It's like the way I appreciate Prohibition-era music. It's not a nostalgic quality because I wasn't there for it that you know about.
I don't know. You are... difficult to place in terms of age.
Yeah, like Kenneth from 30 Rock.
Yeah.
And also, it's technically kind of difficult for me to be nostalgic for Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think I mentioned this in episode 0.
No, don't say it. They'll revolt. They won't listen to us anymore.
I already find our fans revolting.
Oh my god.
That
was the sound of 1 million people deleting the episode from their devices.
Hard delete, reboot. Reset 24 hours.
Okay.
I have only actually played the game properly on 3 occasions, and none of them went well.
Are you counting the times you played with your brothers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm counting the time I played with your husband.
Oh, when you played Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to that.
Well, you might have a chance again because my husband is talking about running a Sesame Street brew. I call Cookie Monster. So
I call Dracula.
I think we talked a little bit about in episode 0 about what we've played, and I figure we can just talk about some of our characters in future episodes as they come. I'll have something to talk about when we get to Yuan Ti eventually. But the way that each monster episode is going to work is we each pick 5 monsters and we roll for the monster that we end up talking about for each of us. So you should know from the title what we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
It's not a secret, but we're going to go ahead and start with one of Nathaniel's choices. Should I tell them your other choices, or should we keep that secret?
Let's keep it secret for fun.
Some of them I'm looking forward to some of them.
Yes. At the end of every alternating episode, after we do our media coverage, we will dice, and we will let you guys know what monster to expect.
Yeah.
Or monsters.
Yes, because we'll do 2 each episode. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start with one that I think is interesting where it came from, because it's one of the monsters I think about when I think of Dungeons and Dragons, and that is the hook horror.
Yes.
And so where do we want to start with this? Do we want to talk about its book of origin? Do we want to talk about why you chose it?
I'll start solipsistically, as I usually do.
Because you like to... Okay.
Yeah. Yes, go on.
Just a masturbatory gentleman.
There we go.
I thought I would be nice to you.
I'm a gentleman about it, though. I always ask myself permission first. So
You're the Louis C.K. of masturbation. You always ask permission first.
Minute 5, episode 1. So, the hook horror, I keep going back and forth. I say there's not a nostalgic factor to this.
But you did bring over...
There is nostalgic element to the hook horror because I own a hook horror myself.
You own 2.
I own 2 hook horrors. Randi, why do I have 2? I should probably explain. Guys, I don't have hook horrors, the monsters.
He has 2 hook horror action figures that he brought over tonight.
Yeah, from LJN, released in the 80s.
They have mere injuries. Each one is injured on a leg, the opposite leg of the other hook horror.
Which is, so not mirrored then.
Okay, no, you know what I mean. All I can assume, so my sister and my friend Jorge once played Russian twins in a mummy game who shared a psychic link which meant they could speak telepathically, but they also took mirrored damage that the other twin took.
Oh, yes.
I can only assume that's what happened with these Hokors. But he brought over these toys, went, it's not nostalgia or anything, but do you think your husband could fix them for me?
So pretty soon, I'm going to have one Hokor with 2 feet and one Hokor with no feet. That one's going to be Randi's. Yeah, and they're kind of the Tomax and Zaymot of the Underdark in this case. So Hokors do have kind of a special place for me. Dungeons & Dragons has loads of amazing original monsters to begin with. That's why we're doing this podcast. Hokors are in my upper echelon, I will say.
And so they are not from a Gary Gygax book, which a lot of the monsters we will talk about are going to be. They're from the Fiend Folio. What can you tell us about the Fiend Folio?
Oh, what can't I tell you about the Fiend Folio?
First of all, it has a rad cover.
Yes,
it has probably one of the best covers of the 80s.
Yes. And again, we're talking about the original, so guys, can you see this? I'm holding it up to the pop card.
There's a Githyanki on it. He or she, I don't know, is wearing a pretty rad outfit that's a mixture of like grungy bandages and also some sick jewels. And it is wielding a broadsword.
Flamberge.
It has... You know the trolls from those dolls that you had in the 90s? It kind of has a troll's haircut up in the front, but then it has like the anime like ponytails coming down from the ears.
It looks like Shatterstar.
Oh yeah, it's like an undead Shatterstar.
There you go. And I'm assuming it's a boy because it does have testicles.
It doesn't have boobies.
It does have testicles coming out of its elbows though.
I thought those were like bulbs of garlic.
So yeah, this is my Githyanki episode. Look, in all seriousness, if you haven't seen the cover of the first edition Fiend Folio, it'll pretty much sum up exactly why we like old school Dungeons and Dragons.
And it has a Toys R Us sticker on the cover because I bought it.
I think that might just be yours.
Yeah, it's my copy that has a Toys R Us sticker on it. So we're doing the Hokor, and it's from the Fiend Folio, and the Fiend Folio was a product of TSR UK. Was it user submitted, or not user, player submitted monsters, or what was it?
Yes. I'm not sure if this was a White Dwarf Magazine or its precursor, because I'm not big on research, but
you could do true crime podcasts.
Yeah, Jack the Ripper was a dude. My theory, time traveler. So it was user submitted, player submitted. They had a feature in every issue of this UK magazine, and it was called the Fiend Factory. And people would submit their own monsters. And here's the thing, when you let a bunch of fans submit their monsters, out of any 5 given monsters, 1 is going to be surprisingly great, 3 are going to be, probably lost to the dustbin of history, and 1 is just going to be banana bread, useless, who would ever dream this up. In other words,
it's
the
like
best ones.
It's like fan fiction. So there was this live journal.
Universally terrible.
There was this live journal I used to read called Potter Sue's, and they had Harry Potter, Mary Sue fan fiction, and they had like a rating system that was basically between toxic to actually kind of good. And so there'd be like about the same amount of toxic and pretty good, and then a bunch of middle of the road Mary Sue's.
So you believe it was toxic, Randy?
Do 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 do. I'm like a tune. You know, like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, if you go like 2 bits. I'm like that with toxic. And so the Fiend Folio... Stop it. Okay. The Fiend Folio was actually pretty widely dunked on, I want to say.
Which just makes me love it more. So they collected all or most of these Fiend Factory creatures into the Fiend Folio, and it is worth noting the vast majority of these monsters have been canonized. And there are a couple creatures that appear for the first time in the Fiend Folio. Little guys you may have heard of, like drow elves.
Yeah.
However, upon its release, this thing met with a very mixed reception.
Okay. Drow elf, which becomes one of the most is the basis for one of the most celebrated extended universe characters, yes. Right? You may not like him, but he has the most number of novels. And then
I don't like Dritz, but I respect him.
You and I have had the argument. I think he's dumb. His weapons are dumb, and you really like his weapons.
Save it for the podcast.
Okay. But alongside Drist is Clacker.
Yes.
So we'll talk to about Clacker in a little bit. I actually want to start...
Can we talk to Clacker?
Clack. Okay. The best part was I did a horrible T-Rex arm thing as I said that. I want to talk about some of the responses to the Fiend Folio. And this is from Dragon Magazine number 55, which was a 1981 issue. The Fiend Folio came out in 80. right?
I'm going to say yes. I don't want to slow down, but you start reading and I'll
So,
double check that copyright. 1981.
There was Dragon Magazine and there was Dungeon Magazine, and Dragon often included more material about the monsters, from what I understand. And so there were two features that kind of criticized the Fiend Folio and one that defended it.
Oh, yes.
And one of the criticisms was written by Ed Greenwood. Who is Ed Greenwood, Nathaniel?
Ed Greenwood, he started out as a fan, and he's now arguably the major creative force behind what currently exists in Dungeons & Dragons. He's the creator of the Forgotten Realms. And that began as his homebrewed thing, and then it became one of their more popular settings. And now, if I understand 5th edition correctly, Faerun is the default setting.
Yeah.
It used to be Gygax's Greyhawk, and now it's this.
And so we went to a pretty rad used bookstore a couple weeks ago in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Coas, if you're nearby. I'm going to plug it because I've been going there literally my whole life since I was a baby. And
COAS.
It's really cool, and like looking for D&D novels was interesting because I would say it was hardest to find was Spelljammer. Did not find a single Spelljammer.
Apparently there are only 6 Spelljammer novels.
There are only 6 Spelljammer novels. Planescape, found a couple of Dark Suns, some Ravenloft. Then the most common ones were, in ascending order, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms. There were so many Forgotten Realms novels. I'm looking, like my bookshelf right now is jammed full of Forgotten Realms novels that I'm going to make myself read. And 2 Ravenloft ones that are going to be my treats. Anyway, so...
Treaty treats. I get to eat straw for dessert.
Yum, yum, yum. And so... Ed Greenwood is pretty influential in terms of the creative writing.
And he began as a Mouthy fan.
Yeah. Ooh, God, we could create a setting.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, okay. Scrap the podcast. Join us next week for the Protonical Chronicles.
It'll just end up being Disenchantment. So,
I think it would just be phone. But anyways, moving on.
Don't mention a good podcast on a bad podcast.
Okay.
So, Ed Greenwood's article was titled "Flat Taste Didn't Go Away." And I want to read you the opening lines.
The telegram-like efficiency of that put down. No, Ed Greenwood's review was, "For sale, Fiend Folio, never worn."
Okay. He's the Hemingway of Dungeons & Dragons.
He's got the beard.
Incredible. So, his opening lines. Its cover was beautiful. I bought it eagerly and retired from the den of the Gen Con 14 dealer area to a dimly lit booth to devour a pizza and my brand new Fiend Folio, trademark, tome. 4 hours later, I set the book aside, hoping my views would change upon later reflection. Perhaps it had been the pizza. So he has a number of issues with it. It doesn't live up to the seriousness of Dungeons & Dragons. He feels like there isn't an ecology for some of the monsters. So for example, he says, monsters such as the Almirage and the Hook Horror have strange appearances and little else. There is no depth to their listings. Certainly not enough information is given to ensure that one DM will present them in a manner similar to another DM's handling. Could you read us the Hook Horror entry?
Absolutely. And just as a heads up, we will not always read these entries in their entirety.
Oh, okay.
I mean, depending on the monster. The Hook Horrors is so hilariously brief that I'll go ahead and honor you guys now with my rich, dulcet tones. Hook Horror. Am I doing the stats too?
Don't do the stats and also say it horror, not whore.
Hooker Horror. Large, powerful bipeds, Hook Horrors have vulture-like heads and a hard-plated exoskeleton which is mottled gray in color. They inhabit deep underground corridors and chambers. Though their vision is very poor, their hearing is extremely acute, and there is only a 10% chance of surprising a Hook Horror. The creature's arms end in sharp, hook-like talons, which it uses in melee, each inflicting 1 to 8 hit points of damage. A Hook Horror cannot speak, but communicates with others of its kind by making clacking noises with the exoskeleton. An eerie sound, which can alarm the unwary as it echoes around dungeon corridors. The end. That's the whole thing. Point of reference, the following monster is just Giant Hornet, and it gets a longer entry than the Hook Horror.
So, I have to agree with Ed on this one. different DMs could interpret that different ways. That was one of his primary complaints, is that, and I actually understand this as someone who regularly has to give instructions to people as part of my job. You have to be very specific or people can interpret it and even enact malicious compliance where they take your idea and they follow it to the letter to the point that they're undoing any of the progress they're making.
Yeah, like a petty genie.
Yeah, petty genie is a good way to put it. But I have to say, a hook horror only has a 10% chance to be surprised. What are their birthdays like?
It says right here.
Okay, what does it say?
Sparsely attended.
Oh, okay.
Although, it was actually at a hook horror's birthday party where Rosalind and Convolvulus met.
Rosalind, there's no D on the end.
Rosalind, whether I'm quoting Shakespeare.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so other things that he says are, there are bad names in design. Some of the monsters' names grate on the mind's ear. One cannot envision sweating adventurers fleeing a cavern with one saying, "Warily now, that protein polymorph almost slew us, friends."
I don't know what he's complaining about, but so much fun.
Awesome, yeah. Right? Undead creatures are too generic, so he predicted The Walking Dead 30 years before its premiere.
Yep.
Too many humanoid races. And
That's humanoid racism.
He ultimately chalked up his criticism of the Fiend Folio to being that he felt it was underdeveloped and that there was a difference of opinion in terms of what D&D should be, which is pretty much D&D in a nutshell. There was a huge difference of opinion between Gygax and Arneson, for example, of what the goal of the DM and the players should be. And even today you have DMs who run it as hack and slash and DMs who run it as you actually have to problem solve. Some people accept the rule of cool, some people don't,
I used to just use my gift of gab to convince our game master to let me do anything. And
to corrupt people in our Changeling game.
That's true. I did have that ability.
There was also a second critical article by a fan named Alan Zumwalt, who I cyberstalked, and I think I found him. I'm not quite sure.
Wow. No, we were doing this much. So, dungeons and doxing.
For a while, I played Pokemon Go, earlier this summer, actually, and I stopped because it got too fucking hot, and I couldn't walk around, but I would
Too many police circling the Pokemon rings.
I would also drive around once a day and just kind of collect Pokestops, and there was one day I was driving with my husband, and we saw a person in an SUV who had an Instinct sticker on her car. That's not my team. I'm Mystic. I'm the blue team. And he got upset that I followed her for about 5 minutes. And he's like, "Why are you following her? You're being so creepy. This isn't like you." And I'm like, maybe she knows about Pokestops I don't know about. Maybe she knows of a place to go to hit a lot of stops at once.
There are no heroes in this story.
There really aren't. So there was a second article called Observations of a Semi-Satisfied Customer. He loves the Githyanki.
Who doesn't?
Likes all the illustrations, and he actually remarks that the illustrations are probably better in the Fiend Folio than they are in the monster manuals.
I feel that they have more character in the Fiend Folio.
That's fair. He was also happy to see that there were neutral dragons, but complained that they were distinctly and undeniably Oriental in nature. And I don't think Oriental monsters fit very well into the European medieval era environment that most AD&D campaigns use. I wish the game's official neutral dragons had been constructed more similarly to the monster manual dragons.
Fortunately, this was the last time TSR would ever have a problem with implementing Orientalism in their game.
Yeah. Well, I just love I like my dragons like I like my women. Occidental.
Okay.
He has a really killer last line, though.
Yeah.
How to sum it up? I would say the Fiend Folio tome is like a basket of peaches. Most of it is pretty good stuff, but part of it is the pits.
I thought he was going to say it's like a basket of peaches. It tastes good, but it looks like ass.
No, but it doesn't look like ass. It looks well, it depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah?
Let's not continue down this road.
No, let's not.
Okay, so...
And then, Randi, for the third feature, the editor of the Fiend Folio and future Prime Minister of Australia, Don Turnbull, was able to write his own response. And I'll just read it in its entirety from Dragon Magazine, 1955. Issue 55 from 1981. It simply says, Homo says what?
Okay.
And Greenwood fell for it, because that was actually kind of a novel joke back then.
So, he said essentially that there were a lot of really complicated reasons that people probably didn't like it. A lot of the complaints were, why didn't you include these creatures from Dragon Magazine? But they had been stuck in development hell for 2 years.
And not the good D&D hell.
Yeah.
We'll be getting to that later.
So that basically sums up his counterpoint. I did get really confused. So it's Don Turnbull, and then who was the Prime Minister? Malcolm Turnbull?
I want to say yes.
And then husband of the show played a puka named Truth Turnbull, and I'm like, which Turnbull is it?
And then also John Malkovich plays a character named Turnbull in my favorite movie, Jonah Hex.
That is a really bad movie.
Yeah. Anyways, you know what would have made that movie better? A hook horror.
We watched that movie together, and you were actually kind of into it the whole time, which really surprised me, because I'm looking around like, Michael Fassbender is being so rapey as the only Irish Maori man. Like, it's really bad.
I was into
was
Michael
Fassbender,
Fassbender,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Do not misrepresent. It's a 75-minute movie, which is how you know it's good. And I was into it for like the 10 minutes that I had some Fassbender action going on.
So there's a hook horror in the Dark Elf novels named Clacker.
Yes.
We won't go too far into it.
The second book, Exile, which we'll discuss, it'll get its own episode at some point, but it's got a hook horror, you guys.
Yeah. So his name's Clacker, which is actually given to him by Dristan Belwar. We'll get to that. What would your hook horror name be?
My hook horror name would be Knockers.
Okay.
What would your hook horror name be? Really?
Cucker. I forgot the word cuck. It would be Cucker.
So, we wrote those on Wednesday.
This is why we're going to watch the first 3 D&D cartoon episodes today, and then record the next episode in 2 weeks.
Just remember Fox News host Cucker Tarleson.
Okay.
It'll help you keep it straight.
Anything else you want to say about hook horrors?
Not really. Well, we can describe their look.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? Here's some look lore about these hook horrors, Randi. I don't have a follow-up, I just wanted to say that.
You said that, but you weren't okay with Rosalind's story that we may or may not cut.
Well, anyways, the hook horrors are interesting because all of the Dungeons and Dragons monsters go through iterations. Rather famously, the owlbear. It took them like 15 years to decide what they wanted that to look like.
Oh, I can't wait till we get to owlbears.
Yeah. The hook horrors, even by those standards, they seem to differ really greatly throughout the different editions. Just a quick Google image search revealed some that really...
You know, we paid Rosalind to go away, but I think she was actually pulled off by a hook.
Oh, probably.
Okay, go ahead.
Worth interrupting. Showdown at the Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are some editions where they kind of lean into this exoskeleton thing. They make them look more like large beetles.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple where they're really going for like a Skeksis vibe.
A Sexies vibe?
A sexist vibe.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And in the original Fiend Folio edition, this one looks quite a bit like the hook horror toys that I brought for you from LJN.
Yeah, I'll take a picture of those maybe.
Yeah. Now, if you happen to refer to it, it's on page 51 of the original Fiend Folio. It's actually a pretty decent illustration, although it's weirdly backlit. It looks like they were taking an old-timey photo of the hook horror. Yeah,
that is kind of weird.
And it looks very human. The physiognomy is like vulture head, guy hands, but it's clearly like a simian body, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And this one looks a little doughy. This has a dad bod. The toy is just cut.
Oh my god, the toy is...
Good lord.
The toy is goals.
Yeah, the hook horrors do a lot of sit-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crunches.
Mm-hmm.
Mountain climbers.
Yep. It's like this hook horror appeared on Parks and Rec, and then my toy hook horror appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy.
And now it donates to a homophobic church.
Oh, well, let's not... Wait, I think you mean temple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's the Forgotten Realms.
Mm.
So, I just really dig the hook horrors. They got vulture heads, they got little guy ears, and the hooks are so tiny.
They're comically tiny. They're not at all horrific.
Later editions give them, like, Castlevania Symphony of the Night looking scythe arms. These are just tiny little hands, and he can still do those great stunts.
Yeah.
So, that's the hook horror. We may or may not return to it later, but, Randi, did you pick a monster for the class?
I did pick a monster for the class, but I want to start with a little bit of role-playing. Convolvulus.
Yes.
It's a man who wears a hat, right? Could you describe his hat?
Not quite a fez, something halfway between a fez and a standard Turkish dignitary hat.
Okay. He's been facing some financial problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oversaturated wizard market.
Oh, yes.
Has led to him lowering himself to perform at children's parties with Rosalind.
Yes.
His hat's starting to get a little worn.
Yes.
And you know what? Does Convolvulus like to treat himself?
He does.
Does. Okay. So one day, as he's walking down the street of whatever town he lives in, who cares, he notices
Itinerant necromancer.
a shop with a sign in the window that says hats.
Hello.
20% off.
Given this day and age, one would think that they would actually just use a pictogram and hang that on the sign outside, but I suppose they're showing off the fact that they're literate.
But it's a good thing. He's literate, too. So
Yes, I am.
does Convolvulus walk in?
Convolvulus enters the shop.
Welcome to the Mad Hatter's Hattery, because I would have to be mad for these prices.
I turn on my heel and leave.
Oh, no.
You're coming on way too strong.
Damn it. Rosalind is outside, and she goes, Convolvulus, have you seen these prices? I will treat you to a hat. Let us go inside.
All right.
And she grabs him by the arm with her surprisingly strong arm.
Yeah.
And leads him in.
All right.
Okay.
I'm just glad we've built up so much goodwill with the audience where they can put up with our nonsense role-playing.
In episode 1.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mad Hatter's Hattery, because I would have to be mad for these prices.
I actually kind of like it the second time, so now I'm willing to hear you out.
So the Mad Hatter tells you that he has a few different hats on sale. Not all of them are on sale. That sign was a little misleading. But you know what? This is not a litigious society, so they do not have laws against false advertising.
Land the dragon.
And he brings over 3 boxes.
All right. Oh, this is just like the Merchant of Venice.
It is exactly like the Merchant of Venice. And so
A land I know nothing about.
Rosalind is really into this idea of treating yourself.
All right.
So she opens the first box and takes out a hat that looks to me, it's a little silly to you. It's kind of motley.
All right.
And she puts it on your head, and I need you to roll a d20 and tell me the number.
All right. I feel foolish. 5.
You do not make your willpower save, which was a DC of 21. You would have had to get a 19. You
Seems stacked against me.
begin to immediately caper and prance, almost as if you are affected by Otto's irresistible dance spell.
Autoerotic asphyxiation? What?
All other characters in the party must make a will save or fall into fits of helpless mirth. So give me my d20 back.
Okay. Wait, we're a party?
Yes. It's always a party when Rosalind is around. Well, she fails. So she pulls out her lute and begins to play. And for 4 rounds, everyone in the shop claps and stomps their hands as you...
They stomp their hands, you say?
They clap and... It's okay. They're hand whores. They clap and stomp their feet as you caper about as if a fool.
Caper, 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 caper. I got a stick.
It wears off after 4 rounds. Rosalind takes the hat off and says, I don't think that one suits you.
I didn't care for that at all.
Okay. She pulls out a second hat and puts it on your head.
All right.
And go ahead and roll your will save.
18.
Oh my god, you match, but that's still a failure. So let's see what you... Okay, you now think you're a druid.
All right. Oh god, I suck. My balls hurt. Where's my golden sickle? Blah, blah.
This is so boring that Rosalind immediately pulls the hat off of your head, throws it to the ground, and says, well, I hope the 3rd time's the charm. And she...
Did she just turn southern?
She's a very bad bard.
Okay.
She's not very good at what she does. She pulls out the last hat and places it upon your head.
All right.
You don't roll anything.
Okay.
And immediately clamps around you, and you can see the room out of 2 eye holes.
Oh, God.
As you turn and look into the mirror, you are wearing an executioner's hood, and you feel teeth push into your face and begin to suck blood out of you.
And it yells, clamp, clamp, clamp.
And the Mad Hatter yells, oh my, that one was not meant to be for sale. You are able to see as you writhe around on the floor with this hood on your head, you're able to see him pull out a quart of brandy, and he begins to pour it onto your head until the executioner's hood shrivels up and falls off.
This is still better than my trip to Hogsmeade in Osaka.
And so this brings us to our monster, which I'm going to read. I'm going to read you the description now. Okay, I do want to say we're going to like put a pin in the role-playing session. You get a steeper discount because of all you went through, and you leave with a very fashionable and bedazzled fez. An executioner's hood is a small, bag-like monster which has a unique method of capturing its prey. The monster crawls into some niche and awaits the approach of the victim. When the prey enters, the hood closes fast about the victim's head, 2 hit roll needed, inflicting 1 to 4 points of damage immediately, and a further 1 to 4 points of damage from strangulation and suffocation until the prey is killed or the monster is slain. Because of the monster's propensity to surround the head, it is very difficult to slay an executioner's hood. It is totally unaffected by sleep spells, and its attack method, fibrous strands, causes the victim to suffer whatever other spell effects the executioner's hood sustains. Pouring strong brandy on the hood, however, causes the monster to lose 1 point of damaging ability per round, and after 4 rounds the hood will fall off, intoxicated, assuming the full quart has been used. This monster looks almost exactly like an actual executioner's hood. Color is dull black, and there are 2 eye holes which actually can be used to see out of into its cavity. The monster is about 1 inch thick. So
it's like those hats that used to possess Darkwing Duck.
Yeah. So this has a pretty... Well, okay, you wanted to say something first.
Oh, no. I just appreciate the flavor text makes reference to, like, a bag-like monster.
Uh-huh.
And it's worth noting, going back to that hook horde description, the arms end in sharp hook-like talons. Just hooks. They're not hook-like. They are just hooks.
I've noticed when I look through these books, and it might be a standard of the time when it was written, because I feel like a lot of these books are written by, or at least edited by, technical writers now, so they're able to use language more efficiently. I've noticed a lot of hyphen-like when talking about monsters, and some.
Okay.
Like, some dank corner, some whatever. They'll use that pretty frequently in flavor text.
Yeah, take that book from 40 years ago.
Yeah, take that book from 40 years ago that was written by fans, and also Gary Gygax in the case of the one I'm using.
There's nothing but love coming out of these covers.
So, the Executioner's Hood actually originated from a module.
Okay.
An EX module. So a module that was meant to be put into a longer campaign called Dungeonland.
That's a terrible name.
So this was a 1983 module, and it was... I'm going to read you a little bit of the flavor text. Based entirely upon the supposition that somewhere in the proverbial multiverse of play, there exist the very lands where little Alice went in pursuit of a white rabbit. And so this was entirely like a funhouse module that was very like, not much plot. You're just like fighting beast after beast. And so you would put it into a larger module. And so when Gary Gygax ran it, he was playing in the Greyhawk setting. And so it was part of the Greyhawk castle. The players fell into Dungeonland, and they fought a variety of like enemies that were based on Alice in Wonderland characters. And so the Mad Hatter was one of the characters. The thing that he would do in play is he would throw hats at players, and different hats had different outcomes. And so most of them were just charmed hats that would cause you to do something. So there was the Hat of Fools and the Hat of Occupation. Those were the 2 I selected.
I wish I could get a hat of occupation.
Seriously. A hat of bennies and, like, life insurance and health insurance.
Hat of 401k.
And the Executioner's Hood was one of them. There was also the Hat of Leadership or something like that, which if it fell on your head, would give you a boost to charisma and then lower your intelligence.
Which one's this again?
The Hat of Leadership. And so suddenly every player would see you as a leader, but you would be so stupid, you would give them bad directions, which is like one step away from Gary just writing like, what's the opposite of progress? Congress.
And also, this was way before its time, but the Hat of Leadership was actually shaped like a bright orange comb over. And, oh god, Randy, the levels are overheating because of all the satire.
And you said I'm going to be the reason that all of our listeners like quit in the first episode.
Okay, fair dues.
This was a well-rated module. Like, it was meant for higher level players, which is why it had such high, like, willpower checks. And I made your character really quickly and didn't even give you the character sheet, so that's why, like, you couldn't really resist anything.
I know what he sounds like, that's all that matters.
But my favorite part is the alcohol vulnerability.
Yes! They can't, the Executioner's hoods are just Doc Brown, they can't hold their liquor.
First of all, the monster manual, the one that I have, which is the 1983 manual that has, like, an ogre on it with a pretty cool braid, like, about to, like, hit a dude.
There's a name for that guy, and I forgot what it is.
Yeah, who cares?
We're not experts.
Yeah.
What do we know? D&D?
Seriously, don't write in.
Oiga Vault. Oh, that would be a good name for a dungeon, the Oiga Vault. That has to have been used in like a Phineas Finger strip somewhere.
So the monster manual, the second monster manual says brandy only. The module says wine, ale, brandy, or the like. But you have to pour a full quart.
Would Zima kill it?
Probably. Wait, how much alcohol was Zima? Was it either a lot or a little?
I was just teeing you up so you could say Zima would kill anything.
Oh, okay. I don't remember Zima. Zima was before I was allowed to drink.
Okay.
How about absinthe? Do you think you'd have to use a full quart of absinthe on an executioner's hood?
You had to use that on me to get me to awkwardly wander around a sandwich shop.
Specs isn't a sandwich shop.
They sell sandwiches.
But it's not. That's just part of it. That's just the deli part.
There's a whole story there that I will tell you. We could put that on our Drinking and Drunkards podcast.
What would you do if you encountered a teetotaler executioner's hood? Like, it's wrapped around your party member's head, and you're, like, pouring brandy, and it's like, oh, no thanks, I quit that a long time ago. It's really bad for you, you know?
So it just... I mean, you pour it on it, but it just refuses to absorb the alcohol? Okay.
It just refuses.
Okay.
Just closes its little mouths, I guess it has.
Oh, God.
I don't,
I picture... I know they don't look like it, but my reference point for executioner's hoods are the brain slugs from the boxing episode of Futurama.
Yeah, no, they don't look like that.
I know, but that thing, they just like land on Hermes and control him.
They have not really been in any other editions, except they have been used in Pathfinder.
Ooh, everything has been used in Pathfinder.
They were in the Misfit Monsters Redeemed sourcebook from 2010. And they're detailed as a lurking ray, a juvenile lurking ray. And then the adults are either like stalactites, or if they're male, or they move around if they're female. I've never played Pathfinder. I was invited kindly to play Pathfinder at a local comic shop, but...
You turned it down.
I didn't turn it down. I just went, sure, and then I haven't gone back.
By the way, way to get the stalactites right.
It's because the T, if you think about it, here's the way to remember it. M's go up, and then T's go down. It's just logic. It's just science.
Okay, no, science would be this.
Okay.
Stalagmites might grow up from the ground, but stalactites hold tight to the ceiling. Now you'll never forget.
You made fun of me for describing the difference between dromedaries and bactrians, like using a mnemonic for that. And I said that's a helpful mnemonic, and you're like, or you could just remember facts.
That sounds like me. So, moving on.
So, they were also detailed in a Geek.com list of, like, what's the word?
Monsters?
No, like, underrated monsters.
Oh, okay.
And the reasoning for why they're good...
I kind of like them.
...is how can player characters resist putting something on their head? Like, if you just had a dungeon and you were describing it and they're like, oh, there's a chest and there's, like, a hood in the chest, you know some idiot in the party would be like, let me put that on. And they would just get themselves deadified, right? Like, when you and husband of the podcast opened a bunch of vials in Changeling and infected us with hantavirus.
Oh, in my defense, this is the same character I mentioned. My disease-bearing character was immune to all diseases, so I was fine.
It was just everyone else.
Everyone else. The hantavirus makes ghost chase after you.
So that's it. That's all I have for executioner's hoods. They're just so... dumb. I love them.
Well, I mean, that sums up most of the monsters, dumb but lovable.
Yeah. And I also think it kind of... Greenwood pointed out hook horrors as something that's underdeveloped, but they ended up becoming like a much more included monster, whereas Executioner's Hood, which you would say is a Gygaxian monster, hasn't really had a renaissance.
Yeah, weirdly enough. And later editions of the hook horror do play around with it. Again, we focus mostly on first and second edition, but I'll refer to the later ones when it's interesting. There was another article in Dragon several years after this whole Greenwood Turnbull symposium that they did, where they get into the ecology of hook horrors. And I was astounded to read that and discover that they are herbivores.
Wait, but in the first...
Well, no, but bear with me.
Okay.
That established that they were herbivores. They lick fungi and lichen off of stalactites and stalagmites and will eat like little fungoid monsters, but they don't eat meat. They will only attack if attacked. And I think somebody read that and went, no, that's nonsense. They're called hook whores. They're going to attack people. So it was later overridden. There was a later Monster Manual edition that clarified, no, they're omnivorous.
And in Homeland, they attack a kid for no reason. They're like batting it around.
Curb stomp him.
Yeah. Bite the curb.
with your vulture beak. And I've read all sorts of things. They used to attribute animal intelligence to them. Now they seem to be a little smarter. They initially said they could not talk except by clacking.
The Forgotten Realms wiki says that they speak Undercommon.
Yeah, Undercommon, which just sounds fun to say.
Yeah. It's like Common's younger brother. I don't know. I don't have a joke there. I don't know why I said that.
There was something in there.
No, there wasn't.
But there was nothing, but with a little love, with a little watering every day, we might grow that premise.
So the next episode,
yes,
we're going to do the first 3 episodes of the cartoon, which was 1983.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 88.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, Randy, yeah, we will put these monsters back on the bench, but who knows, maybe sooner or later we'll each have a monster team and we'll have to square off.
Oh, yeah, with like some third party to help us out with that.
Yeah, we'll see. Hypothetically, this might happen eventually.
So I want to invite you all again to check out our website, pretendiumpod.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Pretendium.
Rate, review, subscribe.
Why did we pick such a hard to spell name? And then we also have a Facebook group called the Pretendium Posse that you can join that will hopefully be fun.
Hell yes. And again, if you're going to join us next week, your homework is the first 3 episodes.
Not next week because we're releasing these all on the same day.
Okay, fair enough.
So in the next episode, pause this.
Wait a week so that we can build up a backlog.
Yes. Go watch the 3 episodes, unpause this, listen to the end, then listen to the next episode.
I don't know your work schedule. Like, take a nap in there if you need to.
Yeah. Naps are good for you.
Yeah, they are.
Or they take years off your life. I don't know.
Yeah. I just stay up all the time.
Yeah.
That's
healthy.
Yeah. So, Randy.
Nathaniel.
Did we successfully cover our first 2 monsters?
Successfully is up to debate, but we covered our first 2 monsters.
Okay. We covered the Executioner's Hood with a larger Executioner's Hood.
Just take us out of here.
All right. Until next time. Alia Jacta Est. Rolling dice sound effect.